There really is nothing worse than having a mind that is constantly on the overdrive, constantly engaging in everything, constantly self-doubting, self-questioning, constantly overthinking everything. I made this video because I thought it's important to talk about overthinkers because I am one. I have experience with overthinking, so much experience, and I also have experience of sort of tempering that and overcoming that to some extent. And in this video, I'm gonna talk about ways to do that and maybe share some perspectives of what helped me to think about this whole thing and maybe start valuing the value of not thinking and the practical ways of approaching that. Now, before I do that, if you're interested in developing your mind, in rewiring yourself, in regulating yourself, I just created this free 30-minute video guide that is accessible to everyone, and it basically talks about the three main elements that I learned over like 15 years of learning about psychology, neuroscience, meditations, esoteric stuff, and all of that. Just three things that you will find in common in any practice that you do. The three fundamentals, really. So you can check out the link below and you can find information about that. So let's start off talking about overthinking by me sharing my own experience with it. And I'm sure you can relate being an overthinker. It's a bit of a difficult journey because from my experience, the biggest issue for me used to be that I couldn't feel life. I couldn't get into life. Everything was like through this layer, right? Through which I had a hard time penetrating into life. I was engaged in the things. I was talking with people. I was in parties. I was at work. At the same time, there was this huge internal thing happening inside of me, which led me to feel kind of alienated from life, distant, and of course, overly stressed and overly anxious. The biggest, I think, thing that I used to consider to be valuable is that I would praise intellect. And I think I'm a decent of a smart guy, and maybe you are too, or gal. And there is a kind of a joy and sometimes turning into arrogance of the intellect, right? Thinking that every single thing in life is about thinking. Every problem solving is thinking. Everything that you want to do, from your relationships to your jobs to everything else, is a matter of thinking things through. And I used to engage in everything like that. I remember when I got into self-development, I wanted to improve myself, learn to self-regulate, change certain things about my mind, about my life, learn to take effective actions. I remember trying to find intellectual ways of doing everything. It took me a while to realize that, wait a second, but the intellect is only a part of your whole makeup, right? And I'm going to talk about that a bit later. If you live in your intellect alone, you're not living a full life. I'm sorry. You're not living a full life, and you will never live a full life. You will always feel in this binary, like opposition, where you're constantly in inner conflicts, in contemplations, and all of that. And there's a time and a place for that, but your whole life is not just made up of that, and you are missing out on that. And I remember when I got into more serious self-development work, not like the superficial one, you just, learn new skills or whatever, but more serious inner work, more related to proper self-regulation, I realized that there's a whole world opens up when you start letting go of overthinking. And when I did that, one thing that happened, everything became easier, obviously. You know, the stress reduced, anxiety reduced, but my creativity skyrocketed because I guess it wasn't dampered anymore. My creativity in, talking to people and working and all that, but at the same time, just like pure artistic creativity. And everybody expresses it differently. You don't have to be an artist to express it, but it was a huge explosion of that. And I think the main thing that you have to realize if you want to experience that, at least from my experience with this, is you have to start out thinking like this. Wait a second, is the intellect and the thinking mind the only thing that I have? Really think about this. And you'll say, well, yeah, I'm thinking, that's how I conceive of myself. I am Bob, I am Jane, and how I have these conceptions, and this thing is good for me, but it's also bad for me, and all that, all these considerations. But here's the thing. Do you know that moment when you forget yourself? Maybe the first moments when you wake up in bed, or maybe you're having a walk and for a moment you're there, you sort of zone out, or maybe you're doing something and you zone out. Is Wouldn't you say that you don't exist in those moments? You're definitely still there, but you're not thinking about yourself. You're not self-reflecting. And you would say, well, okay, maybe sometimes, but how is that relevant? That is relevant because that is the access point or a reference experience for you to start understanding the direction that you have to go as an overthinker if you want to resolve or balance out your thinking capacity with your capacity to engage in life. This system that you have, the mind is just one of the systems. Frankly, the mind is your ability to self-reference. It's your ability to abstract and to create virtual models in your head. You need that as a human being, obviously, but you don't need it for everything. And in fact, if you start developing your capacity to tap into the non-thinking states, you will develop yourself so much faster and so much better that, by the way, you will become even better at thinking than you used to be before you were only focused on thinking. That is because your thinking mind is a secondary phenomenon, okay? The primary phenomenon that you are is awareness. That is why you can forget about yourself and just, I'm doing something, and you completely forget about yourself at that moment. The reason why you can forget about yourself is because what you are is before the thoughts. You use the tool of your mind, you engage in this, you engage in all this navigation, but it's not the only thing that you have. And you really have to consider this if you want to ever get out of your overthinking. A lot of people, what they do is they go, okay, I'm overthinking certain things and these things make me stressed. So I'm going to think about other things. How about that? I'm going to think positive. I was thinking negative. I'm going to think positive. You're never going to resolve the deeper tensions if you approach it like this, because you're playing the same game. Stop playing the game altogether. Learn to disengage from your mind. There's plenty of practices to do that, plenty of meditations and yogas and breathwork and all that. You already know this probably, okay? Or if at least through cultural osmosis, you kind of understand this concept. What I'm saying to you here is, you have to start prioritizing that, or there's nowhere else there's no other way. Like, how else do you expect to do this? You can distract yourself by many things. You can just pile on a lot of stuff. That's some way out, but that's not the ultimate way out. The ultimate way out is recognizing that you are something more than just a thinking mind and developing your capacity to be in that place, to get in that place, and to live from that place. Accepting being and pure awareness as a more base thing than your mind. Now, this, if engaged in your life, will create a drastic transformation of your living experience. You realize that you were thinking in quite a limited world before, and the world will open up more to you. The reason why it will help with your thinking is because you will realize that, the good and the bad, all of those are virtual meanings and realities that we create in our mind, or at least we engage with in our mind. What that means is that you have the freedom to navigate between those. A lot of people get stuck. An overthinker, by the way, is typically a person that's very stuck in their personality. Psychologically, they're very rigid. Like, they're very stubborn. They're very like, they can bear, if they were a physical body, their psychology would be a physical body. Would be like, I'm so tense. And by the way, like those very intelligent people, and they have a certain type, they have a certain physiology, they express themselves in a certain physiology, which is kind of tense, right? That's because they're psychologically tense. They're only in their mind. You will never be freed up if you live in your mind. Having said that, when you learn to engage that no mind zone, right, you will start learning to use your thinking as a superpower, which I think people who are overthinkers have very high capacity for creative work, for intellectual work, And if they use it properly, they can be very successful at it. So if you have it, it might be a benefit. But if you learn to use it, right, use it properly, right, you will start becoming way more effective at what you do. Because another thing, which beyond the no mind thing, is very important. If you're an overthinker, you have to establish psychological priorities, meaning you have to go, all right, I know that my mind is very like intense and sticky and it likes to go in all directions. So as a baseline, I learned to go into no mind, I learned to relax myself and all of that. I learned to self-regulate. But now that I did that, I have to set up certain cue points, right? That I don't go like randomly and just think about anything. When I wake up, and this is something that I teach when I work with clients, you have to set up certain triggers almost for yourself, right? What directions do you want to go in? What am I going to be thinking about today? And sure, there's specific goals, but then there's also values, these subtle felt experiences that you want to anchor yourself to. Because you know yourself. If you don't, you're going to go to all directions. So if you combine that cleaning up of yourself with your ability to focus in on certain things, you will resolve 80% of your overthinking problems just like that. Now, it will take some dedication and focused work on doing that, but I can definitely attest to it that it is overcomable, it is regulatable, and it's definitely improvable. So, if you're interested in that, do check out the link below for the free course. It's a nice basis for anything that you want to do. And by the way, if you do that, you can also join the free Facebook group where you can, share your goals, share your experiences. It's only for people who are actually interested in doing the work, serious people. But it is free. It's just a new group that I just opened up for use. Head on over there and you can join and you can start doing that type of work. And also, of course, if you are someone that wants one-on-one help, I do coach people in all of that stuff. You can reach out and we can work on your challenges individually. So thank you for watching, and until next time.